It started, we've hit that time of year. I couldn't remember exactly when it was, but there is a point where the sun is high enough to creep through a gap over there, and it starts to light up this side of the grow room. It's only a short space of time, that'll be gone within about 10-15 minutes, but gradually it will start further over until eventually it lights up this whole side for about half an hour to an hour, and then it will be gone. But yeah, it's quite a thing. That is the first ray of sunshine to get inside this grow room in 2023 on the few cattleyas I've got left, my few survivors, and even a couple of them don't look too clever. But apart from the mounted cattleyas, that's it. There are now 5 plants left, and on the mounts I think there are 3 or 4. You know, there's an awful lot of loss in that genus. Anyway, just a snippet to slot in, and we'll be opening up that later. You're not having it till the end. They say the best is always left till last. Well, I suppose, I don't know. Oh, look at that. A little school child wrote that. So you might be able to guess where it came from. Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is probably going to sound daft. I just came out to film that ray of sunshine in the corner, and I thought, why don't I just get on and do my Sunday chats, because I'm not going to do a sort of big deal about a genus of orchids or anything like that. I've got other things to do. And as usual with the Sunday, rather than do the Oscars, I'd like to thank Uncle Tom, Cobley, the universe. Thanks to everybody who supports the channel in any way you can. That's all of you done. Even just doing a thumbs up after watching the first 20 seconds of a video helps. Yeah. Now on that subject, I'm going to join in with a rant. If you go over to Nina, Ninja Orchids, there is a rant on there, and it's something that's annoyed me for a long time, but not enough to spout off about it. But it's the fake channels, and with me it goes deeper than that, because there are loads there. I mean, to me, they've got like a big star shining out of them saying this is fake, and what annoys me is this is fake. Why are you watching it? It's obviously rubbish. You can't take a Phalaenopsis flower spike and stick it in an onion and grow a new orchid. If that was the way to do it, all the commercial growers would be doing it, wouldn't they? It's just so much nonsense. It's nonsense. And like Nina says, you've got big corporate companies now dedicated with staff, equipment and funds to actually generate these rubbish videos on channels that are nothing more than a money-making enterprise for a company. They're not people. They're not like us. They're not people. So it sort of goes against the grain of what YouTube was all about. But YouTube is not just information, it is also entertainment. And some channels are a bit of both. Some channels are one or the other. If I want to know how to do something, I type in how to do so-and-so on YouTube, and videos will come up to tell me how to do things. That's brilliant. That's part of what it's for. But in amongst that list that come up, I don't want rubbish. I don't want misinformation. I don't want false news. I don't want gobbledygook and cobblers. Most of the time, to me, it's blatantly obvious which is the good stuff and which isn't. But yeah, once it creeps into our little orchid community, those that are actually genuinely interested in the orchids should be able to spot something. Oh, there's a channel I haven't come across before, and it's got 2 million subscribers. That's not possible. That's what you've got to think about. You know, oh, that video's got 10,000 views in 5 minutes. No, not on the orchid channels. There is only one big orchid channel, we all know whose that is, and that's spent years getting to that status. So, yeah, it doesn't work like that. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Age-old statement, isn't it? Right, yesterday I went to the Bournemouth Orchid Society show, and even though I was a member there for many, many years, that was probably their best, apart from their 60th anniversary at Highcliffe Castle, which, if any of you remember that, people still talk about that, you know. People still say, when are you going to do it again? Well, not me now anyway. But it was a good show, and for once Hannah enjoyed the day. She normally puts up with the day because it's better for me to go with somebody than just go on my own, if you know what I mean. And she knows that. So, but she actually had a good day yesterday as well. Obviously I don't film at Bournemouth Orchid Society, but Hannah took some stills on her phone, which will eventually get to me, and I can put a slideshow together of, you know, at least some of the blooms and some of the plants. I don't know what pictures she took, I'll have to wait and see. But I'll put something together. But yeah, it was a good day. It was a good day. She came down on Friday, and we were gonna have a go at that bamboo in the garden, but Hannah's helping out somebody doing some gardening work. It's based on putting up a fence. It was classed as an extra pair of hands, and when she got there last Sunday, it was basically moving rubble and carrying heavy things and that, and she's crooked her neck, so she can't really, you know, it's very immobile and quite painful. So I said, the garden can wait. We've done enough in the garden for the, you know, for the house inspection to be happy. And if they're not, quite honestly, I don't care. I know what work I've done, you know, so I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure they'll be well pleased. And the fact that there's a bit left to do is not a big deal. They can see it's progressed significantly. So we didn't do any gardening. We had a lazy day. And then yesterday, obviously, a relatively lazy start to the day. There was no need to get up early or anything because we didn't have to be there till lunchtime. And it's only up the road. It takes like 35 minutes from here to get to where the show is. And what was a nice surprise is, as we walked in the door, Sean walked out. Sean's had quite a few of my plants in the past, at various times. We've met frequently, you know, out of the people who watch the channel, he's probably the one I've met the most. And yeah, he'd come down to Bournemouth to pick up some plants, pre-ordered I presume, and wasn't stopping. Because the first thing I said was, you're a long way from home, and when I thought about it, actually he's not that far from home, because I associate him with Burnham's, because we've often met there. Well, it's not where he lives. He lives, you know, like halfway or not far off it, so he's closer to Wimborne, which is where the show is, than I thought. Yeah, so met Sean. Didn't meet any other YouTube viewers that came, well, that came up and said hello anyway. But nonetheless, I know lots and lots of people from the Bournemouth Orchid Society and people who just come to their shows. So yeah, it was good fun. I had quite a lot of time with Lynn and Alan chatting away, and the RHS had a meeting there, and because of the RHS association, people had brought plants in specifically to be judged by the RHS to try and get some awards. Some plants had well, not plants, but some blooms and spikes had been brought over from the Eric Young Foundation, which is one of the Channel Islands, Jersey I think they're on. And what I didn't realise is because the Channel Islands are associated with the British Isles, and yet the CITES and import and export rules apply to them if they want to come onto the mainland, which I didn't know. So they didn't bring any plants, they only brought spikes and blooms across. So obviously that's easier. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's only just across there, like you could see it from here, like, you know, and yet that lot applies. So anyway, they were there, so there was again quite a few other people that I knew relative to RHS people. So yeah, it was a good show. The competition tables were well filled. Some good stuff there. But my friend Brian had supplied an awful lot of that, including quite a few for display only, because you can only put, I think you can only put one in a class. So you can put one in each class, but you can't put lots in the same class. And he brought a lot of his cymbidiums in, so they got put on for display only. So that fills it out a bit. And I know Alan Burdis brought quite a few Paphiopedilums and Cypridiums in, and they were for display only as well. So yeah, but Hannah took some pictures. Hopefully I'll get them in the not too distant future, and I'll put them together, you know, as a slideshow with a bit of music, just so that you can see some of the stuff that was there. Because as I've said, I don't film there. So that's that. Our Wessex Orchid Society show is this coming Saturday now, and that's one that I'll be there all day. Basically, I'm going to go in early and help set up and everything. So I could almost predict I'm going to have a bad back Monday and Tuesday because of what I'll be doing. It makes a long day for it. It's not a long drive to get there, it's only about an hour because it's motorway, whoosh, you know. That time of day on a Sunday morning, there won't be any get out of the way. See, I'd love to do that. I'd love to have enough money to play with things like that. I'd like a horn that didn't go beep. I'd like a horn that went get out of the way, really loud, like through speakers. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to help set up, you know, all that sort of stuff, lay out the categories because it's competitive, and help with people setting up plants, all that sort of stuff. And then when you've done all that, there's nothing to do. And you're sitting there waiting for the doors to open to allow the public in. And there's still nothing to do really. And you've got to stay there till the end really. Well, I haven't got any plants to take. So in theory, I don't have to stay to the end, but I do. Because I'm treasurer, I've got to take away, you know, all the money that's been taken in and all the information as to what it relates to and everything, so I have got to stay till the end. It's going to be a long day, 8 till 5 probably, 7 till 6 really if you add the hour's drive on each end, so it's a long day. And I spoke to Lynn yesterday. We must remind each other because she has back trouble the same as me, and it's triggered by sitting in the same place too long, standing in the same place too long. So I said, between us we need a pointed stick each so that we can poke each other and say, oi, you haven't walked about for a bit, or oi, it's time you sat down for a while, so that we can remind each other to do a bit of sitting and a bit of standing and a bit of walking about. Yes, because as you know, that Bonsai Society meeting I went to, I had a bad back the next day, and that, you know, reminded me of how it once was frequently. And I can do without that. Who's on my roof? Anyway, so that's that. Plant environment wise, I was talking to Trey. He's one of my favourite traders because he's very, I don't know what the expression is, does everything properly and above board. There's no backdoor stuff or anything. He deals mainly in species, and he tries to get the rare and unusual rather than the normal. So, you know, that's his niche in the market. And I didn't realise he had ADHD, which can make running a business a little awkward. You must need to write a lot of stuff down, I would think, and then forget where you wrote it. But anyway, he does well. But they had a power outage, and he's lost a lot of plants. And it's not just the number of plants, it's the thousands of pounds worth of business that's been lost by, you know, now not having those plants to sell. So that was not good. I spoke to somebody else who'd had a similar thing. they'd had a failure of kit that went unnoticed for, during that real cold snap. And it don't take much, you got a grow room goes down to -3 overnight and you don't know till the morning. You can have lost a lot of plants then. It might not show immediately. Cold damage is strange. Some of the really thin-leafed orchids with very, very thin leaves, they'll show the cold damage almost immediately. But you get the thick fleshy leaves, the Phalaenopsis types, Paphiopedilums, Cattleyas, they can take 2 or 3 weeks before that cold damage starts to show, and you suddenly start getting pitting and patching and sort of thinking, well, what's wrong with that plant? And sometimes you even forget to associate it with that hit of cold that they had. So it can be, sort of serious. I feel sorry for, places like, up north in this country, in Scotland, that, they lose power for 4 or 5 days. Well, if you haven't got gas backup in some description or some other form, you lose your collection. It's no good saying, well, take them in the house. The house hasn't got any heat either, And you get, certainly stories we get on the news about in the States where people have had power loss for weeks, cut off completely and all that sort of stuff. So it's not good. Right, yes, so back to my environment. I've got, it's good to see that sun, I must admit. See, it didn't last long, it's gone already. I can see where it's gone out the corner of the eye. And now that I've looked at it, I've got a big blob just there. Ducks. Tend to forget I'm not far from the river here. Not far at all. Mojo's outside, he's just sitting there staring at the hedge. Well, there's probably birds in there. Yeah, so in here I've started only a couple of days ago. I'm maintaining the night temperature at 15, and I'm starting to, I was changing the daytime temperature around 9 o'clock, between 9 and 8:30 through till about 4 in the afternoon, raising it to 18 so that I had a differential. Well, I've started raising it to 19 now, so I've gone up 1 and for longer. So I turned that on a little earlier, and because the day lengths are getting longer, I can leave it on a bit longer. So I've increased 1 degree and probably about an hour in length of time that heat is available to the plants. Once we get into, well, towards the end of this week, I think, once we get into the first week of March, I think I'll go up another degree. Because the idea is that as the day length approaches 11 hours, which in our country, in the UK, that is a major trigger for growth to start, providing everything else is suitable. And that's the bit that if I do nothing won't be, because I won't have the rise in daytime temperature to go with the day length. So I'm artificially doing it in the hope to start new growth going. Not on any particular plant, that's just across everything that is in a position that it ought to start growing at that time of year. And that isn't everything, but that's the plan. I have no idea whether it's going to work, but I was talking to Hannah about it and she said, well, why wouldn't it work? That's what happens in nature, and you're mimicking what would happen in nature. Yeah, stuck in here is not really nature, is it? But I'm going to give it a go. It's a costly thing to do. I mean, obviously, it cost of electricity and everything nowadays. I mean, I've been lucky and had mine, sort of restricted up until about August, I think it is, and then it can do that. But nonetheless, I will find out soon. My electricity and gas bill will come in about the beginning of the second week of March, something like that, and then I'll find out how much I've used for this extensive period of 3 months where I've been, maintaining a higher temperature nighttime and pushing the daytime up. So we'll find out how much that's added in. It's gonna be a lot, I know. Still, if we want a collection, then that's what's excuse me, got to happen. I'm stood here holding this, it's empty. I finished it just as I came out to start filming. But like I've said, I hold it to stop my hand wringing. Right, we went to a show yesterday. I bought a new plant. There was a vendor there that hasn't been there before, and they were there purely because there was an RHS meeting. So they took advantage of needing some people to be there anyway, and yeah, let's get the plant out. Now, people like a little teaser, a little game. So relatively recently, different types of plants have crept into the collection. Oh, I despise wood pigeons. That is an inane noise to make. And loud, and serves no purpose. As opposed to like a blackbird singing or a robin singing, which is pleasant to anybody's ears. That is not pleasant to anybody. Yes, so basically recently some plants have come into the collection that I said I wouldn't have. So there's your big clue. And I also said I might look out for a certain type of those plants, and that's your next clue. So let's get it out the bag. I'm going to have to turn the camera around, or it's not an unbagging video, is it? I'll just disappear and then come back. Here is the plant. So I'll turn the camera around so that you can see. So you're going to get wobbled about a bit. So be it. Right. Somewhere about there. Where's my screen? Oh, hang on. Mojo wants to come in now. Come on then. Funny cat he is, he does do some strange things. Right, so I'll just tilt that down a bit. That'll do. Right, so we have a little carrier bag. Weighs nothing. And on it, in schoolgirl's handwriting, is reserved, I think that's what that says, Roger. And that was me, because I bought it. That was actually Sean's fault. As Sean came out, as I said earlier, he was leaving as I came in, and I said, what you got? And I said, oh, where'd you get that from? And he said, so. I said, have they got any more? And he said, yeah, I think there's one left. So I shot in there. There was more than one left, but so this has been carefully wrapped by school children. So can you guess who the seller was yet? Very unusual to be at a society show like that, but Riddlington School were there. So Simon Pugh Jones was there. He's retiring soon. He got that Orchid project off the ground at that school. You know, with the dedicated glass houses, with the separate environments, and brought it back into the school, into the labs. So they produce their own flasks, they produce their own seed, and then germinate it and bring the flasks on. And there's a little business runs off of it because he wanted to incorporate the orchids into this whole of school life. So they get to write about orchids. So, you know, there's English and all that sort of stuff there. The science part of it, there's some maths involved, there's some science involved. And also they have a group of people in somewhere in Africa, I think it is. And it's a similar orchid project, but it's for disadvantaged people. And they're coming over to the UK on a visit soon. Apparently it's really difficult to set up and get off the ground because most of the people involved haven't got things like passports and stuff because they never expected to go anywhere. But so there may be an open day later as part of that project. But yeah, Riddlington School were there, and Simon's retiring soon, so somebody else has got to take over that whole enterprise, I'll call it, because you've got the growing, the involvement of the school kids into all aspects of that life. They've got their own laboratory, you know. Anyway, what did we get then? Can you tell what it is yet? We got, it will come unstuck, what I said I would get if I saw some. A miniature cymbidium. I mean, look at the size of that plant. That's never going to get huge. Nice little tidy. That would look great on a windowsill, like on a bathroom windowsill, wouldn't it? The blooms are lovely and delicate, and this is a colour I haven't got. Pink. Delicate pink. So that's what I got. It's got a name. It is Cymbidium Showgirl. And it's a young plant, that's its first flowering. It's got a couple of back bulbs and a couple of front bulbs. And I can see good, strong, healthy roots down in the pot. That is probably potted on from either the community pot or direct from the flask and grown on in that pot. So I doubt if that's been repotted since it got put in there. Given the moss layer, which is always a giveaway on orchids. It takes time to grow moss like that. But nonetheless, you know, there's none of this imported stuff, rubbish media and all stuff like that. Grown by school children in probably one of the best environments in the country. Anyway, so that's what I got. The spike has been reduced for some reason, so it might have been that a few flowers on the top had started to go over or something, I don't know. But yeah, I'll be happy to grow that on. Now there were two there, but the blooms on the other one were a creamy colour, and I thought, I've actually got that colour already. I shouldn't have, because it should have been copper. That's another story, isn't it? Anyway, so a new plant. Nice little miniature Cymbidium. And thanks to Sean for that, because if I'd got there 10 minutes later, I wouldn't have seen Sean, and I wouldn't have known there might be a miniature Cymbidium around for sale, and I would have gone into the hall with my intention of not buying anything. So I wouldn't have been dashing straight up to see what plants were for sale. I'd have probably dashed up to the first person I know and, "Hi, haven't seen you for a while," thing. But because of Sean, I knew that was there, so I went straight to it. Bought that, got it put to one side. Now I can relax and enjoy the rest of the show. So yes, it's now 8:20 in the morning, and I've finished filming my Sunday chat. I thought I'd get on with it to just take advantage of that little ray of sunshine. I was so pleased to see that this morning. Now that could have been there for a few days, but it's been cloudy. This is the first time we've had a bright blue sky in the morning, and a frost to go with it, obviously. This morning when I came down, the house was at 13 degrees. It was warmer out here at 15 than it was in the house. And I've got Phalaenopsis on the kitchen windowsill. Not good. That was a consequence of, obviously the heating was on yesterday morning. It was a very cold night, and yesterday morning we had the heating on, but we weren't here for the whole day. So the heating went off when we went out at whatever it was, 11:15, 11:30. And I got home at just after 8 o'clock. Well, I go to bed around 9 o'clock. It wasn't worth heating the house up to go to bed, so I didn't bother. So the house has had a long time with no heating on and very cold weather outside. It's chilled down. The fabric of this house leaches the heat. So when I got up this morning, I had a little lie-in this morning, 6:15. That is, mind you, I'd been woken up quite a few times before then, because the cats get fidgety. They're used to me getting up earlier than that, and they sort of think, "Where's my breakfast?" So they come up and remind me, "Meow, meow." And I go, "Sod off, I'm having a lie-in." Excuse my French. But yeah, so a little bit of a lie-in this morning. So the heating's been on since whatever it is, whatever it was when I got up, around 6 o'clock. And at 8:30 we're up to about 17 degrees. So we're still not even up to 20 in the house. As I said, it's now warmer in the house than it is out here, but not by much. Right, so there we go. That's your Sunday chat for today. Stuff coming up this week. We've got the normal 2023 Project Orchids on Friday. There will be the slideshow of some blooms and plants and that from the show. There's bound to be repotting videos. One of the cats yowling again. It's probably Mojo. But there's bound to be repotting videos. Those will be dotted around frequently for some time because I've got a hell of a lot to do. Which ones it'll be, I don't know. I've got like a priority list, and you know, as things come to the top of the list. But I'm waiting. I have a change. I stopped using the sphagnum in pots and switched over to using the cocoa husk. Recommended by some good growers, saying it, you know, was a good substitute. Doesn't last too long, but not bad. It must be thoroughly rinsed 2 or 3 times at least. Check with your TDS meter and all that. And I tried it, and at first I had brilliant results, but then I had plants' root systems starting to go down. So obviously it was breaking down and turning probably a lot more acidic than the moss would. So it was taking my root systems down, and I'm in the process of getting that out of pots. And next week at the show, Peter White Accessories, saw Peter yesterday, he was there for the RHS meeting. He's bringing me some sphagnum moss, you know, some of the nice New Zealand reasonable quality stuff. And I will start using that where I used to. Now obviously that used to get used an awful lot for the mounted orchids, in fact, you know, almost across the board. And then I started using live moss for the mounted orchids with some reasonable success, but not all of it was successful. I think some of the live moss is just too tight. It shuts all the air out. And other things love that. You have to get it burrow in under it, and are quite happy with the trouble is with the live moss, the dense live moss, if it dries out it dies, so you tend to keep it a bit moist, so you're actually keeping your roots wet all the time, and that may not be the best thing for some plants. For others, great. And then we've got the big coarse, Welsh moss. That's on some mounts as well. That's in some pots, and that is very useful to put around the top of pots if you've got some pseudobulbs that have started to climb and their new roots are in the air. You can put that moss round and allow those roots to get down into whatever media is in the pot. But yeah, I'm getting some more sphagnum moss, which I will use in things like where I go to repot something and there's serious root loss, and I'll use that to help get new roots to grow. Plus some plants do well in a mix of sphagnum and bark, with various balances, various mixes. So we're going back to reintroducing that in places where it will serve the most purpose. It'll be noted and it will be replaced on a regular basis, because the cost of the plants outweighs by far the cost of the moss. If I pay whatever it is, I think I'm paying about 12 quid for a bale, well that's less than the cost of one plant, isn't it? Pick things into perspective. Call this moss and half gone up a lot. I used to pay 8 quid for that size, it's now 12. It's less than the cost of one orchid. Oh, by the way, how much do you think? £8. Not 1/8, which would have been cheap, just 8. £8 for a nice little miniature Cymbidium in bloom. The school retail side, their business side, is for the children to get retail experience of selling, talking to people, trying to sell things up. It's not there to make huge profits, you know. So they sell their plants at very reasonable prices. Anyway, there may be a chance to visit. If there is an open day in any shape or form, I will be there to get a look round those greenhouses. I got a feeling from where Simon was inkling it might be an evening do, so more like a chatty meet, but I don't know. See, if it's in the evening, now if it's in the middle of the summer, that's fine, it will still be daylight. However, we shall wait and see. I'm speculating. Generating fake news by speculation. And that happens on national news in nearly every country that has news programmes. Speculation turned into what they call news. It isn't news till it's known, then it's news. Right. I have to watch the news to just keep in touch with what's going on, but so much of it is centering in on something that is getting far too much coverage for what it actually is in the big scheme of things, you know. Anyway, could talk for hours on that, drive you around the bend. Thinking about it can drive you around the bend. So let's get back to thinking about nice things like orchid blooms and looking after our orchids and doing some repotting and splitting up and swapping plants with friends and all that sort of stuff. And go steady with those fake orchid hacks, you know, like I say, you know. Stick this 1-inch section of a phalaenopsis spike in this magic media and you'll have a plant in 2 weeks in bloom with 10 flower spikes. It's bollocks. And it should be so obviously rubbish, but I know a lot of the views on those channels because they're manufactured channels, like I say, they're not real people. There's actors and things involved, you know, there's money being spent to create that, to fool YouTube into thinking they've got a wonderful channel going on here. You know, they've bought in subscribers, they've bought in views to fool the algorithm into thinking this channel's going like that. We'll help it, you know. And all they're doing is donating their funds to big corporate companies, not to the genuine creators. And like Nina says, the genuine creators are getting shoved to one side. So it's very difficult to get a channel to grow at all now. You're just getting pushed aside by these big corporate non-real channels. So don't help them out by watching them. I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.